In some American cities, it seems that there are homeless people on the streets almost at every step. Of course, the overall impression of the country immediately deteriorates. Is it true that sometimes it is even more profitable to be homeless than to be hired workers? Is it really true that there are so many mentally ill people among the American homeless? Who is most often homeless? Are those who live in mobile homes considered homeless? And are all homeless people really poor? In this episode, we will go to the streets of the USA to learn more about how people live here without a roof over their heads. It is difficult to say how many homeless people are on the streets of America. Counting and statistics are mainly done by volunteers. According to official data for 2017, the number was over 500,000 people. Although in fact, there are much more of them. Also, the National Statistical Center for Education announced about 1.3 million homeless schoolchildren, not counting their family members. If someone wants to compare these figures with Russian ones, it is quite difficult to do so, because we don't have statistics as such. Although in 2010, the population census recorded data on 64,000 people without housing. Thus, if compared with America, there may be an opinion that there are almost no homeless people in Russia. However, this is not surprising because it is very difficult to wander in the winter. There are no so-called homeless settlements. They also do not have benefits and rights, and therefore it is very difficult to live being homeless. American statistics also show that the majority of homeless people are concentrated in New York, followed by Los Angeles, and then Las Vegas. The homeless themselves prefer California as a shelter. It has a mild, warm climate, which allows you to stay warm at any time of the year. There are a large number of mentally ill people among the homeless. This is due to the fact that there is no compulsory treatment here. Therefore, people who are really not themselves can walk the streets in peace. Moreover, at some point psychiatric hospitals ceased to be so actively funded by the state, which led to consequences. Inadequate people are unable to get a job, and therefore they become poor and have to live on the street. For this reason, walking the streets of large American cities can be scary and dangerous. You never know if he is a psycho or a normal person in front of you. There are other equally dangerous representatives of the homeless world. People with addictions cannot get a job because they spend their entire salary on their needs, and then they find themselves unable to work. Also, people who have been released from prison are often among the homeless. It is also not easy for such people to find a job. Single mothers are at risk. Such women and girls make up 40% of the homeless. And another 1 American out of 200 was left homeless at least once in his life. These statistics are based on official data from homeless people who seek help. So in reality, the situation can be even more terrifying. A number of homeless people are regularly replenished by veterans, since the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs doesn't always have the opportunity to provide them with social housing. About 38% of the homeless are disabled. Health insurance costs a lot of money, and therefore poor people cannot afford proper treatment sometimes. Also, people who previously lived in poor areas become homeless. City authorities are trying to get rid of poor areas. Old buildings are being demolished, and people simply have nothing to pay for new ones. People who have lost their jobs stay without housing because many Americans take housing on a mortgage, and after losing their job, they can't pay for it. Nevertheless, homeless people in the USA are full members of society who are protected by the law and have the right to receive payments. Usually it's $710 for personal expenses and $200 for food. Sometimes the states can pay them an additional amount on top. Being homeless in America doesn't always mean literally being without house. There are shelters for people who do not have a home. Such shelters are funded by the state or private charitable organizations. One such shelter can accommodate up to 800 people. They can use medical and dental services, services of a psychiatrist and psychologist. They can attend a local church, send their children to a local kindergarten, and play sports at special playgrounds on the territory of the shelter. Homeless people can live here even with their pets. People with a family have separate blocks. People without a family live in the same room and sleep on bunk beds. There is also a canteen where the homeless can eat. Some people with their families live in trailers and gather in whole trailer parks. Almost every American has a so-called trailer park or mobile home park. A used mobile home can be purchased for $5,000, and an old trailer in bad condition can be bought for $1,000 at all. Therefore, people with very limited funds buy such houses, thereby exempting themselves from paying property tax. Since the trailer is not considered a house, and they pay about $350 a month for renting a place in such a park. I once traveled by car across California and Nevada. My final destination was Las Vegas, and somewhere 100 kilometers away from it, there was just a so-called trailer park. There can be so many trailers that they even form entire streets. But not everyone is so lucky, or not everyone wants to do something for a comfortable stay. Therefore, some people live on the street, set up whole tent camps, such as in California. Los Angeles is sometimes even called the capital of the homeless. Local residents began to bypass the homeless camps by the side, since there is unsanitary conditions, garbage, as well as crime. There used to be a lot of cyclists here, and even specially stretched ribbons with spikes for them to puncture their tires. The authorities have been notified of the problem, but they are not in a hurry to solve it somehow yet. For this reason, most recently, the residents of the City of Angels decided to independently begin the struggle against potential new camp residents. The Americans began to build barricades of boulders to block and stop the spread of such camps. And according to American TV channels, this is not the first case of an attempt to struggle the homeless. The authorities do not encourage such methods, but as already mentioned, they do not solve the problem themselves. In our understanding, a homeless person is an untidy, unkempt person in rags, wandering the streets in search of food. It is rare to imagine a homeless person who would do something for his development, since the only thing he is concerned about is finding money or food. And yet, in the same America and in general in the world, there are homeless people who are not like those to whom we are accustomed. Charles Pitts lives under the San Francisco Bridge and regularly maintains a Twitter and Facebook blog. He claims that we live at that time when we can easily do without television, radio, and newspapers. But the internet is also vital in our time. Charles knows all the secret places of the city where he can charge his laptop and use the internet for free. Among the homeless who became famous in the world, Style Li Ji from China, who became famous due to the fact that despite his financial situation, he continues to dress stylishly. The Chinese gave him the nickname Brother Stylish. And famous couturiers even paid attention to him. Among the homeless, paradoxically it did not sound, there were rich people. For example, the homeless Kurt Degerman from Sweden, nicknamed Tin Can, he gave all the collected funds to the stock exchange. After his death in 2008, his securities and shares amounted to more than $1 million. According to the will, his funds were to go to his brother, who sometimes visited Kurt in the hospital before his death. But a significant chunk of the funds was also torn off by other relatives through the court. That's all I have so far. In the next episode, we will go to the ghost town of Detroit. So subscribe and don't miss new releases.